Welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us on a Monday. So much to get to, so much to go over. I came back late Wednesday night from my trip, and the following day, Thursday, we had a horrible tragedy that took place in this city. Now, you know, a lot of, I guess you could say there have been a lot of articles out there, a lot of people writing and polls that are saying some of the worst drivers we have in the country are right here in Las Vegas. I don't know if that's true or not. I do know we have way too many fatalities. There's way too many people that lose their lives at the hands of drunk drivers, people that are incapacitated, people that are on drugs, people that are driving recklessly. But what took place on Thursday night, make no mistake about it, was one of the worst car wrecks we've had in the Valley in a very long time. Let me explain what happened, and it's going to be very difficult to talk about it because it's horrible. And it's literally right down the street from this radio station. It's literally right down the street from where I live, and it is, I don't even know the right words to use. I'm almost at a loss for words at how horrible this story is, but police are saying that there was a speeding car that was to blame for a fiery multi-vehicle crash. I mean, there were at least 7 cars that were involved in this from what I understand. And in one of those cars was a 39-year-old driver that was killed, who police say are driving recklessly. And to make matters worse, there were a family of 5, a 17-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 4-year-old, a mother, a grandmother in that car. And 3 of those 5 people died. The driver of the car, who caused this crash, died as well. And family and friends are identifying those 3 victims as 4-year-old. That's right, 4 years old. Layla Martinez White. Her mother, 29 years old. Her life ahead of her. Amanda Martinez. And her mother, 48-year-old Donna Vargas. The accident happened with a spark and then turned into a huge fireball. And thanks to Good Samaritans, as I would like to call them, heroes. The true definition of hero is someone who risks their life to save others, and that's exactly what took place on Thursday night. People went into this burning vehicle and dragged out of this burning car, putting their own lives on the line, taking out a 17-year-old by the name of Emilio Martinez and a 10-year-old in Destiny Martinez. I would love to be able to speak to some of those individuals that risk their lives and are heroes. But what is so tragic about this is not only these 3 lives, innocent lives that are lost, but this 17-year-old Emilio Martinez, friends of the family are saying that this 17-year-old burns throughout his body and will most likely be paralyzed for the rest of his life. As far as this 10-year-old that was dragged out of this vehicle, she's still in a coma. This 10-year-old has 2 broken arms, a broken femur, and burns all over her body. And why? Why did something like this happen? And like I said, I'm no stranger. I've said this on the show before. I'm no stranger to serious car accidents. When I was 12 years old, some incapacitated idiot driver, not even going to say his name, took his eye off the road, my entire family in the car. I lost my grandmother. She died instantly. My mom's heart stopped and my parents were in comas. My mom was in a coma for 3 months. Both my parents received traumatic brain injury. My sister had several surgeries on her stomach. She was 7 years old at the time. I was 12. And the man that hit us had 2 broken legs. He had no money to pay for anything that we went through as a family, no car insurance. And my family has suffered our entire lives at the hands of one idiot that got behind the wheel and took his eye off the road and was incapacitated. And I lost my grandmother because of it. I cannot even imagine the pain and the suffering that family and friends are going through that know these innocent people that lost their lives on Thursday night. And you want to talk about the worst way to go, and I don't even really want to get into specifics here, but a car bursting into flames, dying in that manner, I can't even imagine the pain that those 3 people, well, all 5 of them, clearly, went through. it just puts a lump in my throat, and it gets me emotional because I drive past this intersection, I don't know, JD, 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Probably.
you live around this area too, and I see the flowers that were set up there, and I see the burn marks.
I was definitely I chose to pick up my child from, she's at the daycare right next door to the station. But I chose to pick her up actually an hour early that day, and I picked her up around 4:45. Had I not picked her up, or had I picked her up at her standard time of 5:45 to 6, I probably would have seen this crash as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I drive down that road on a pretty consistent basis, but you definitely drive it down more than I do.
Yeah, it's just it hits home for me. And then I look at a picture of this 4-year-old girl. And by the way, they do have a GoFundMe page set up. We're going to get that up on our Twitter page. I think they've already raised about $35,000, which is great that the community's coming together to help this poor family go through this. I can't imagine if you were at that gas station there or you witnessed this crash. I know we have somebody who works here at this station, Sean, who has actually worked the board for us several times. He said he missed this crash by like a minute. I mean, those are images that you never forget for the rest of your life. And now the focus is turned to what caused this crash to happen. And reporting for us is Chris Wynn, who's a friend of the show. He's out there. Metro Police are doing a press conference right now as we speak. So as soon as that press conference is over in regards to this horrific crash, we're going to get the latest from Chris down there at Metro headquarters on Martin Luther King Boulevard. But what police have said in the last several days is that obviously this was a reckless driver who was speeding, going at a high rate of speed. I'm going to make an assumption. I could be wrong on this. It could have been a medical episode, but the fact that he was speeding and it was a rainy night leads me to believe that he was probably incapacitated, that he was probably drunk, that he was probably on drugs, and he killed 3 people in the process and ruined a family. We have a 17-year-old that'll probably never walk again. We have a 10-year-old that may never get out of her coma, that has burns all over her body. And for what? Was somebody in a rush to get somewhere? And this is why I say this.
You know, were they texting?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
but this is why I say I don't know. But this is why I say this over and over. See, this is why I don't think this is a texting situation, because it was reckless driving. Usually when it's texting, maybe somebody goes through a stop sign going at a normal rate of speed. Maybe somebody goes through a red light going at a normal rate of speed. Again, we're going to find out, Chris. The toxicology report takes at least a month or two, so we're not going to find that out probably, but we'll see what Chris says. But here's what I want to say about incapacitated drivers. If you decide to get into a car drunk, and Vegas, make no mistake about it, is a tough city on drunk drivers, as tough as you can get, right? But I know many people out there that have gotten into the car, they're drunk, they get pulled over, they get a slap on the wrist. You have to pay a large fine. You might have to take a class or something. They're driving again within a month. I've said this time and time again, and I'm going to say it again. And it's funny because, you know, a law just passed. You have to be 21 years old now, I believe, to buy cigarettes. They don't change anything when it comes to alcohol, though. You know, cigarettes are going to, for the most part, I mean, unless we're talking about secondhand smoke, but for the most part, cigarettes are only going to hurt yourself. Alcohol and DUIs kill so many innocent people every day. It's sickening to me. And it is my personal opinion that if you get pulled over for a DUI, you should automatically lose your license for minimum 1 year. For that year, you should have to think about what you did. And that's if you just get pulled over and you don't hurt anybody. No accident I'm talking about. You should automatically lose your license for a year. Be forced to take the bus. Be forced for friends to drive you everywhere. And I've also said every single car, whether you've had a DUI or not, every single car should have one of those instruments put in there where you have to blow into it to make sure you're not drunk. Every car should have one of those. There's no reason why they shouldn't. But if you get into a car and you cause a crash, even if somebody doesn't lose their life, even if somebody isn't injured, even if you just injure yourself, if you get into a car drunk and cause a crash or an accident, I don't want you driving a car ever again for the rest of your life. And some people might think that is harsh. I don't think it's harsh at all. It's one thing if you cause an accident and you're not impaired. We all make mistakes, sadly. If you don't see a stop sign and you're not speeding, or you lose control of your vehicle because of bad conditions on the roadways and you weren't breaking a law, that is why they call it an accident. But make no mistake about it, if you get behind the wheel and you are drunk, that's not an accident, okay? As far as I'm concerned, that's murder. If you kill somebody and you're drunk behind the wheel. Now, it might not be premeditated murder. They might call it vehicular homicide. If you cause a crash and you are drunk, even if it's a one-car crash and you only hurt yourself, I don't think you should ever be allowed to drive a car again. Why? Because driving a car is a privilege. And if you are dumb enough, and yes, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it dumb. And listen, I'm calling some of my friends dumb. I have close friends that have gotten behind the wheel of the car and they've been drunk. I don't certainly get in the car with them. If you are pulled over, you should lose your license for a year. If you cause a crash, it should be a one-strike-you're-out rule. I'm tired of this slap-on-the-wrist crap. I am completely tired of it. If you commit a felony, you're not allowed to purchase a gun for the rest of your life. If you injure somebody and you're drunk behind the wheel, why should you ever be allowed to drive again? We'll take some phone calls on this. And look, I am going under the assumption.
Well, and a lot of it actually is variable on, who is your DUI attorney? Does your family have connections? Do you have money? I mean, I know back in Omaha, Nebraska, I knew a guy. His father was a multimillionaire. He had 7 DUIs, 7 DUIs, but he paid gradually more every single time to get that taken care of.
Listen, I want to give you a chance to respond more to that, but I'm going under the assumption that this guy was impaired, and we'll get more information as time goes on. But I want to get your thoughts on this too. What do you think? If this guy was drunk or on drugs or whatever, and he executed this family, make no mistake about it, that's what happened. Let's just say he survived, which he didn't, and I certainly don't feel for him at all.
And it's going to be very, very difficult for the toxicology report, considering the fact that he was probably burned alive.
They'll still be able to find out. They'll still be able to find out, from my understanding, but that's a valid question. But I'm pretty sure they'll still be able to find out. So here's my question to the listeners out there. If this guy had survived, he killed 3 people, he paralyzed a 17-year-old, a 10-year-old is still in a coma, what do you think should happen to somebody like that? Now, in most situations, if he was drunk, he'd probably get 5 to 10. Are you comfortable with that guy getting out of jail, getting a driver's license, and being allowed to drive again? I'm not. What do you think about some of the DUI laws in this town and in the country? Do you think if you are pulled over for a DUI, you should just get a slap on the wrist, pay a fine, go ahead, we'll let you get back out there on the roadways within a month or two? I'll open up the phone lines. What do you guys think out there? 702-257-5396. Again, that number to call, 702-257-5396. What are your thoughts on this crash that took place at Desert Inn in Durango? Have you seen some of the bad drivers in this city that I've seen that drive so recklessly, and that if you're not a defensive driver, you would have been in an accident? I see it every day when I'm on the roads because I am a defensive driver. I've never caused an accident. I've been in accidents myself from buffoons that don't know how to drive. But it is my personal opinion that if you get behind the wheel and you're drunk, even if you don't cause a car crash, even if you don't hurt somebody and maybe only hurt yourself, it should be a one-strike-you're-out rule, man. I don't think if you are a drunk driver, you should ever be allowed to get into a vehicle behind the wheel again, because driving is a privilege. That's why we call it a privilege. What do you think should happen to some of these drunk drivers in this town? What do you think should happen to some of these reckless drivers in this town? Do we remember that crash that took place? I remember it on Spring Mountain Road. Kid was drunk and high, and he plowed over, and I believe he killed 8 people on Spring Mountain at a bus stop. He's probably going to get out of jail in a couple of years. I think he got 5 to 10. Are you comfortable with somebody like that being back on the road rides in their lifetime? I'm not. What are your thoughts on that? Again, that number 702-257-5396. And again, that number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation, that is 702-257-5396. JD, am I wrong on this one?
I would not say you are wrong on this one, Brian.
Well, what are your thoughts on DUI drivers in general terms?
Well, yeah, you definitely have a deadly weapon, and you made a great point about cigarettes. Yeah, when you smoke cigarettes, there are situations where if you're around cigarette smoke, you have secondhand smoke, and you can get cancer and die from that. But when you actually have a vehicle, say there's a drunk guy down on the strip, and I'm shocked this hasn't happened more times. But there's a group of 20 or 30 people walking across the crosswalk, and this drunk person who's so intoxicated he should not be driving, but he gets behind his car and he runs over 15 or 20 people, killing 10 of them. I mean, that's really not going to take place with cigarette smoke and secondhand smoke. So I totally agree that the consequences for being drunk behind a 2-ton vehicle that can travel up to 140 miles an hour, variable on type of car it is, the consequences should be very, very dire. And it's puzzling why the age of why smoking cigarettes went from 18 to 21. And the DUI laws are not much more strict.
Yeah, it is incredible. I agree with you. Again, we're talking specifically about the car crash that took place at Desert Inn in Durango, literally a block from the station and from where I live. The guy who caused this crash lost his life, 39 years old, but there are three people in a family, a 4-year-old, a 29-year-old, and a 49-year-old that lost their life. There's a 17-year-old that is paralyzed, and there is a 10-year-old that is still in a coma. What do you think out there? The number to call, 702-257-5396. Again, that number, 257-5396.
And that being said, we don't know for a fact if this person was intoxicated, so we're just, we're kind of speaking off of a...
He caused the crash, we know that.
Off of assumption here, but he was definitely probably going anywhere from 90 to 110 miles an hour, hit a parked car waiting at a light, hit them so hard he knocked them into the street.
In the middle of the intersection.
Interacted with several other cars and created a giant fireball just a couple blocks away. We know that for a fact. And again, if he was drunk, it was 6 o'clock, so he probably started drinking early during the day, and the chances are he was an alcoholic if that's the case.
And we'll take some phone calls real quickly at 257-5396. But Campaign, you wanted to add into this. What'd you have to say?
What if he was coming from like a bar? Like what should happen to that bar? What if he was coming from?
There are laws put in place that if you overserve somebody, you can be held legally responsible and you lose your liquor license. So I would imagine we have Chris Wynn, who's down there at the press conference right now. So if they have that type of information, and they probably know, they're not going to know what was in his system, but they will know where he came from. They will probably have that information, and that's a valid point.
And I don't know what the actual laws in Nevada are, but back in Iowa, where I'm from, there's a law called dram shop. And dram shop means that it doesn't matter if you overserve, but if you serve someone and they get into a car accident, the bar can be legally liable for whatever damages. And I don't know if that actual law applies to Nevada. I'm guessing that it doesn't, but if it does, that could definitely be implemented here.
All right, we want to hear from you guys now. 257-5396 is the number to call. Let's start with Ed. Ed, you're first up. What do you think about all this?
Hey, what's up, Ed?
Well, I frequently hear weapons of war don't belong on the street. Vehicles that belong on a racetrack be on the street. We had a McLaren kill a guy in a parked car. We had the guy in the Range Rover going 0 to 80 in 5 seconds. We had a guy on a bullet bike smash into another car, kill a 12-year-old girl and her father.
No, you're right.
So on and so forth. Now, this is a Mazda 6, which is sort of not a Corvette or a...
Well, Ed, it's a valid point what you're saying, but let me say this. If you're driving a vehicle that can go 300 miles an hour, if you're a responsible driver and you know how to drive a car and you obey the speed limit and the laws on the roadway, you're a defensive driver, then we probably wouldn't have to worry about the models of these cars, right?
Yeah, well, I'm just throwing it out there.
I understand what you're saying. I get it.
I'm just throwing it out there. But, you see these people in traffic all the time racing around, and it doesn't matter what kind of car they're in to some extent. There are people out there
they're buffoons.
that are driving totally irresponsible, and there should be a way of putting a red flag on them.
I agree.
And if you get them on a dash cam or a security cam,
absolutely,
impound their car.
Absolutely. Ed, listen, you make some very valid points there. I could not agree with you more. If you're causing a lot of wrecks on the roadways, then you shouldn't be driving. 257-5396 is the number to call. Let's go to Troy. Troy, you're next up on the Vegas Take. What's going on?
Hey, what's up, Troy?
Good.
What's going on?
I was going into a situation as a pedestrian a little over 3 years ago. A driver said he was looking forward, whatever that meant, and suffered a brain injury that's forever changed my life.
I'm so sorry. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So, I agree with you on the drunk driving. Another big thing here is we have the marijuana laws now. And I'm always thinking about how many people are driving around high, because that's got to be just as bad as driving around drunk. And then on top of that, the people.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. I think certainly driving drunk is it impairs you more than if you are high. But Troy, listen, make no mistake about it. I'm really sorry for what happened to you, and obviously this story hits home for you like it hits home for me. Both my parents have traumatic brain injuries because of some idiot that was on the roadways that doesn't know how to drive a car. It's sad. It's sad.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Actually, I have a story about myself as well. I got pretty lucky, but when I was about 24 years old, I was leaving the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska, and I was driving down downtown, and there was a Mustang. He actually was an undocumented illegal immigrant, but he was in a Mustang, and he blew a red light completely. Blew a stop sign, completely blew it, and had it been probably maybe a split second or a couple seconds, he literally hit the front of my vehicle, and it looked like it was just completely. I mean, it was completely totaled. But I ended up not getting injured at all. He ended up getting arrested. He was intoxicated. But had that been, a split second either direction, I might not be having this conversation.
We
right
all
now.
have stories. Let's try to sneak in one more quick phone call. I got about 1 minute for Rick. Rick, what's going on?
What's up, Rick?
Yeah, I know what you mean, JD. I got about 10 years ago. I was coming from work and over at Davis plant, and I was going through a green light, and this guy hit me in a Cadillac, and I had a little Honda, and spun me around. And I hit a woman.
Oh no!
And I never knew what happened to her, and I was in the hospital for I think 10 days. And even today, my right side isn't feeling. It's got pains and everything in it.
Rick, I'm so sorry. Was the guy impaired that hit you?
Yeah, he was impaired, and I saw him I saw him when we went to court. I felt like busting him in the mouth.
What did he get? What did he get? Did he get any jail time?
He lost. Yeah, I think he lost his license. I'm not sure because I never.
Probably not too long. Rick, I apologize. I'm up against a hard break. I'm so sorry that happened to you. We all have sad stories. If it didn't happen to us, Rick, it happened to somebody that we love or somebody that we know. And these bastards that decide to get on the road impaired and put all of our lives at risk and play Russian roulette with society, throw the book at them, put them in jail, never allow them to drive a vehicle again. We are going to get a live report from Metro headquarters coming up next. Chris Wynn is on the scene. The latest information on this car crash. What happened? Why did it happen? Maybe we'll get some answers coming up next with Chris. We'll take a quick break. Be back right after this. You're listening to The Vegas Tape.